This is the final demo presentation for Team 43. This project is the Food Truck Financial Analysis Platform. I want to start by giving an overview of our project, and then we will get into why it is complex. In our project, our sponsor, who is part of the Food Trucks Association of Canada, has asked us to create a financial platform for the food truck vendors she works with. The core of the platform will be a place where food truck vendors can take images of a receipt or PDFs of invoices and upload them into our application, where we are to extract the text of the documents and track these expenses for the food truck vendors so they have a better understanding of their costs as a whole. Why is this complex? Well, reading images and extracting the text, cost, quantity will be a difficult process because it is not always clear on the receipt. As we can see in the image here on the left, is what the items are, and the cost is kind of clear, but sometimes the quantity and the unit of measure can be complex. And it's not quite as clear as what we can see on the right here, but on the right, we kind of are missing the quantity and unit, possibly. So as you can see, there's a lot of variety when it comes to these documents, and from even line to line. Our app will need to not only be able to read these documents, but it will need to be able to identify what the item is through some sort of machine learning process or maybe some external API that can help. Along with identifying the item, it will need to be able to categorize the item. An example is like milk and cheese being categorized into dairy. Some other category examples would be like meat or grains and so on. It'll also need to be able to incorporate a workflow for the user to review and approve the actions of the OCR process, as it will not always be 100% correct, and if machine learning is involved, it may take some time to train it on proper data. Additionally, there is more complexity with this application since we are learning new technologies like React Native, MySQL, Node.js. Learning how all these pieces work together adds more complexity. And then additionally, things like security between the front end and the back end of the application, partitioning data for all the food truck vendors so that food truck vendors who are buying certain items are seeing their items differently than another food truck vendor who has a completely different ingredient set. And then also this app will need to be extended to mobile, but a scaled down version of just the ability to import and take photos of receipts. But at its core, the complexity of this app is the OCR process and categorization process, and making sure we give valuable information back to the user so that they are just not manually adding data to the database on their computer, and that we are actually providing a time savings. In regards to artifacts that our team developed to help formulate the problem, we did the following. We created a use case diagram. This helped us envision the process from a high-level view. I will walk through it now, and then later on describe how it has since changed. Initially, we had users, food truck vendors, that would interact with our system by uploading receipts, invoices into the web and mobile application. They would also retrieve some of this data back into their app for their own viewing and decision making. Admins, as seen on the right here, would be able to add new food truck vendors as the request to sign up was asked to be kept internal to the owners of the product and not made public facing for the public to just sign up whenever. At the bottom here, this is an external food truck menu system. Initially, a requirement was to work with another group to extract details from their system that would be used in ours. The details would be things like a food truck's menu items and then the corresponding recipe. The idea was we would receive the recipe and then we could use the cost that we had extracted to build a total cost for the menu item and be able to calculate things like margin, based on the sales price and the cost we have. How has this use case changed over time? Well, the admins want more access to be able to see data as an aggregate for all the users in the system. This will help them help the food truck vendors make better decisions on purchases because they can see what common items are being purchased between food truck vendors. Additionally, the external food truck menu item system was scrapped, and that is going to be kept in-house by our team to create menu items and also recipes, which it should prove to be a little easier for us, even though there is some additional work. Finally, since our application was completely from scratch, we needed to build a base for our project. So, to build the front end, rather than just starting to code right away early on, and maybe having quite a bit to redo and unravel to meet requirements, we built a prototype of the application. This helped us communicate to our sponsor what we believe the requirements were for this project and helped make sure we were in alignment before we started coding out the project. I will go through the prototype now. Of course, we needed a login page because we have multiple users that have different data, and we don't have the most at-risk data, like private data, but there is some things that probably should be kept private. And then we also have a sign-up page for the admins to add users to the project that will then be able to log in. Once they have logged in, they will get a home page, and we have some just example items here, but it's going to more so be like a dashboard for the project to where they can maybe see different cost trends or maybe their high spending items and things like that. And then to get into the core of the app, our document import process where we can drag and drop documents in the web app, and from there it will initiate the OCR process to extract the data and categorize it and store it in the database. We would have a document review process so they could see pending and approved documents and then click into them to see details. And from here, in the details, they'd be able to see the image of the document so they can review it and then see what we extracted and make changes, delete rows, add rows, because the OCR process is not always going to be 100% accurate. And then finally, we have the margin calculation page. This is where we will show a food truck vendor's different menu items and then the recipe associated with that menu item and the cost that we extracted. Maybe it's an average cost or a weighted average. And then from here, the cost will populate. They can plug in a sell price and then calculate a margin. And additionally, from an admin perspective, they will be able to enable and activate users as time goes on. So this prototype was pretty huge for us. It really just demonstrated like what we thought the requirements were to our sponsor. Our sponsor gave us a little bit of feedback, but it really got us rolling on the front end and gave our team a good understanding of what this project was going to be. We will now go over what we have completed from multiple facets. First, let's discuss what we have completed from a user perspective. We have taken our prototypes and feedback from the sponsor to develop the front end of the application. As we can see here on the left, we have the application running. I will walk through the application from a user perspective. From the start, the user will be able to log in, as you can see, we have interaction with the database over here, and if we incorrectly log in, we also have that interaction as well. And once a user is successfully logged in, they will be presented with a home screen, which will act as more of like a dashboard to show them different sorts of metrics, KPIs, or just data in general related to their food truck. From here, we can go into the core of the application, which is importing the documents. They will be able to drag and drop a file or choose a file and start the upload process. From there, they will see the documents that they have uploaded, and they will see which ones have been approved, which ones are pending, and from there they'll be able to click a document and go into the details of the document. Within the details, we'll eventually give them access to the image or PDF of the document for them to view and approve, and then we will show them the details that the OCR process and categorization process was able to output. And from there, they can edit or add new rows, delete rows if anything is wrong, and then at the end, approve the document. Additionally, once the OCR process has happened, there will be all the menu items and costs will be categorized, and they will be able to see an overview of their categorization and costs by category, and they will even be able to click into the details of their categories and eventually see details as far as individual line items that are pulled from receipts and invoices. Also, the food truck operators will be able to add different ingredients and recipes that apply to their food truck. They'll be able to add an item, they'll be able to view a recipe, they'll be able to add details to a recipe, and save those recipe changes. How that helps is through the margin calculation, we'll be able to select those recipe items, which will then bring in details of the recipe and the costs that we have extracted through the OCR process. And then they can do things like setting sale prices and do calculations to get margin percentages on the calculations. And this will help them make decisions on maybe my cost is too high, maybe my sell price is too high, or am I hitting the right margins to make my business profitable? And finally here, from an admin perspective, they will be able to sign up users, and they will also be able to enable and disable users on the food truck. From a developer perspective, we have a code base that is 100% from scratch from Team 43. We did not inherit a code base from the sponsor, so we have to develop the whole thing, from front end to back end to integrating these pieces, to then building all of the functionality requested by the sponsor. From our perspective, our goal was to get a solid foundation up and running this semester, and we accomplished that by building a front end and a back end and integrating them together. There are still pieces to complete, but they are minor in comparison to the progress we have made so far on this application. Now that we have a solid foundation, we hope to get continuous integration going next semester on both the front end and back end, so we plan on investigating that more. It should be possible as our code base is using pretty popular languages. And just a quick navigation here. In our backend folder, this is where our web server exists. And then inside here, we try to follow HTTP protocols for some engineering practices. So using things like GET requests, delete requests, posts, and put requests, which deleting would be, it's very obvious, deleting data from the database. Getting is just retrieving data from the database. Post is inserting data into the database, but also it can help with encryption across the wire so that some information can't be stolen when you're submitting to the API. And then the put request is to modify data in the system. And then we also have classes here that extend our APIs to interact with our database. So through here, you can see things like inserts into the database or deletes or even updates and selects. And then also, it goes with the backend, we do have a DDL folder which holds our SQL file, which allows us to make changes to our database structure and then run this file, which will drop the existing one and then recreate the file, recreate the database with the new schema. And then we also have some dummy data in here, like we're storing users and encrypted passwords and just things that we can interact with within our front end application for now. And then here is our front end folder. This is where the left side of the app exists, the React Native TypeScript front end. And here there's the project name, but the core of this, the initial starting point is within this index file, which has a case switch to switch between the pages here through the sidebar. And then additionally, all of these, it's a one-page app, so all of these things are called components, and in the components folder you can see like our different pages and different pieces that we have developed, like the login page here, and then we have a sign up page. Yeah, that pretty much covers our front end. And then also, as far as engineering practices for performance, we want to try to make sure it's as fast as possible. So we're using things like indexes in the table structure of the DDL. So that should speed up things when individual food trucks try to access their information. It won't be slowed down as much from the input from all the other users that input data for their food trucks. And also, we are using things like primary keys to help put integrity into our data. And then finally, one of our engineering practices is to use a good method for merging our code. So what we do is we have a main branch that's stable and a dev branch that's stable. All of our user stories are branched from the dev branch, and then all of our tasks are branched from that related user story. And when we get ready to merge, we pull dev into the user story and through to the task and handle conflicts, if any, within that task or within that user story, so that when we push to dev, it's a fast forward. In conclusion, we feel pretty good about the progress so far in that we have the core of the application out of the way. So next semester, we will be able to focus on laying on features and styling and meeting our sponsors' functional requirements and getting more into the details. Thank you.